which is about regulation. And regulation, of course, is very key to our industry, very core to our heart, and very daily business for many of us. We are doing every year a global survey on regulation with all our members, and we are presenting today the main results. It's our survey edition, so we did this survey, so we are now able to track evolutions. And of course, we do this not as academic exercise, we do this for the sake of supporting you, reinforcing our advocacy, and being stronger together by knowledge and facts and intelligence. I am the one who has been leading this project. I'm happy to present the results today to you, but of course, this wouldn't happen without my team, Victoria and Beatrice, who have been very core in this exercise, but also without all of you, our members, who have been providing content and input. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Menno, who will give some opening remarks as board member, but before that, of course, I would like to welcome Stephanie as our guest speaker from the RE.
Thank you so much, Michael, and wonderful to see you all. I see even a few names that I news because it means that we're expanding our reach, so that's wonderful news. And as Michael already said, of course, regulation is key to our industry. It's an important driver of.
Menno?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. You are breaking away every now and then.
Oh.
The sound isn't that stable, unfortunately.
Does everyone else have that same problem?
Yes.
That is very strange because I'm not even on the Wi-Fi, I'm plugged in. But if you want, I can grab some headphones.
I think that would be better, yeah.
Let me quickly do so. Just so that you won't have to miss a word of what I have to say.
That's
no,
the purpose.
Exactly, that's not what we want.
All right, here we go. I'm plugged in and I hope this is a little better.
Much better.
Good. So as I said, regulation is really an important driver of our industry's growth or decline even. And so it's only justified that WEC aims to get a comprehensive view of the regulatory environment that we operate in around the world. Now, as Michael also mentioned, this report is a members-only resource, but it serves as an essential tool of advocacy, both at the global and the European level, so by the WEC head office, but also to support your national advocacy. And so it's really a tool to support WEC members. Let me also join Michael in thanking Stephanie for being with us. She will reflect a bit on the importance of regulation and regulatory intelligence at the global level. Before we get into the regulatory report, which Michael will take you through, I wanted to make the more broader observation that in a way 2024 has been a very tumultuous political year, of course. I think everybody is still reeling from the US election, which recently took place, but overall billions of citizens around the world have gone to the voting booth, some in actual free and fair elections, others just to confirm what we already knew. I think, for example, Russia also went to the polls, but maybe those shouldn't really be called elections. And at our side, at the Adecco Group, we did a little assessment of what actually came out of those elections. And we realized that overall, in all the OECD countries, political configurations were rather stable. But we do see two trends coming out of these elections, which I think are relevant for all of us. First of all, we see that parliaments got more splintered. So more parties elected in parliament, and therefore, on average, they are slightly smaller, holding relatively lower number of seats. And second of all, we did indeed see a slight shift to the right. In some countries, of course, in specific pockets, we see a big shift to the right or even the extreme right. But even on average, some traditional left-wing parties or central left parties have lost ground to more conservative parties. And as a result, I think we should all count on a few challenges coming our way. because if we have more parties to deal with, that might make it harder for us to influence policy making. And also it might be harder to predict the regulatory frameworks that are coming our way. And the quality of legislation may even suffer from this. Now, what does that mean for our industry? So focusing on our industry and focusing on the regulatory report, the report focuses on 4 key areas: conditions for establishment of an agency, conditions to provide HR services or agency work services, labor contracts and the type of labor contracts that our industry is allowed to offer, and finally, working conditions. And overall, we've seen some concerning regulatory trends. I think many of us are aware: Australia, Brazil, Germany, Netherlands, Norway. Actually, our Norwegian member, of course, acted on those restrictions that were put on our industry, and we are eagerly awaiting a European judgment on those Norwegian restrictions being put in. Finally, the report doesn't look only at regulation, but also looks at collective bargaining and industrial relations. So it's really a rich and broad overview. And what is also very good news is that this is now the 5th year that we do the regulatory report in more or less in this shape. So since 2019, and that means that by now we finally have some ground for comparison and to look at some regulatory trends. Now, having said all this, I think there's enough interesting content there. So without further ado, I'm handing over back to Michael for a first introduction into the report's findings.
So sorry for small delay. Here we are. So the report is as said. The current one, 34 federations have responded this year, same as last year. And that, as Menno said, gives us some comparison and some good sort of information. We have looked at the results. We have also done some fact checks with members. And this document, the overview of the presentation, gives the main results for our members as status quo, as well as the evolution across the years, and reflecting September 2024, because we did the survey over summer, June to September, and anything that happened after September is not reflected anymore. Mexico is a special case because the industry was banned and only core businesses have been banned. So it's a bit of a big mixed for Mexico. Here you find on a very texty slide all the findings in one slide. So as Menno said, 4 main conditions for agency work plus social dialogue. And what you see here, not going to every single detail now, but what you see here is a very heavily regulated industry and sector. Conditions for use, very common license system registration schemes across the world, as well as conditions for assignments in 97%, so very heavily regulated, as well as other conditions like sectoral bans and others. We know that these regulation elements are core to our industry. We also always welcomed appropriate regulation, but we also see that some conditions, as Menno said before, are unjustified or are challenging for our industry. Working conditions and social protection are the other part, the other half of regulation. And here we see that overall agency work is, as we often said, the most secure form of flexible work. The work conditions are heavily regulated, strongly regulated, and equal treatment, equal pay is quite common, especially in Europe, but also in other parts. We have as well other work conditions, social protection issues. And then social dialogue is, of course, key, depending on national context and evolutions. And I invite you after the webinar to look deeper into the report and into this overview slide, because there are a lot to explore, a lot of fun to see there. I will go through every element in more detail. What we did this time for the first time is to look at elements of regulation and then look at the share of workers being covered. And as you say, the legal maternity and paternity leave, 100% equal treatment, equal pay in some form or shape, very diverse across countries, but in some form or shape, 100%. And that goes on. And the least common is wages being covered by CLAs, which is, of course, for Europeans different, special, but of course, it's different in other countries because equal pay is quite often a legal requirement. So this is share of age workers being covered. If we then move to the main findings, establishment, as said, strongly regulated. Age work is allowed in almost all countries served, with the exception of the case of Mexico. We have, in the majority of licensing system with registration schemes, we have some commitments, which are guarantees being established in more than half of the countries, and we have certain requirements for operating an agency also in many countries. So overall, heavily regulation on condition of establishment. On the conditions for use, a couple of main elements: sectoral bans, reasons for use, length of assignment, and liability schemes. And we see again, regulations on assignments are quite common in some form or shape, again, very diverse across countries. About half of the countries, 56%, have objective justifications for the deployment of agency workers, so reasons for use in some form or shape. And 2/3, almost 71%, have assignments to have regulation that limits the reason for use. So, for example, to replace cycling workers. Moving on the comparison, length of renewals, quotas, and you see here the percentage of replies. And moving then further to working conditions, we see that, again, strongly regulated sector, and the majority of countries, 74%, have legally recognized actual work contracts. The vast majority of countries have some regulation in place on equal treatment, equal pay. Equal pay is, of course, important. And 47% have derogations in place, for example, by CLAs or augmented contracts. In many countries, around 50%, the traveler work is limited to employment agencies, and working conditions for workers are predominantly impacted by national legislation and that is applied by user companies or at sector level. Looking again at some elements here, the types of labor contracts, you see there is a diversity of labor contracts, but it varies strongly across countries. Open contracts are now becoming more and more common. Fixed-term contracts, of course, part-time work, variable hour contracts are less frequent. Project work is also less common, and others are, of course, depending on national context. Social protection, final section on the working conditions and regulations side. With a few exceptions, age workers are treated equally with respect to access to protection and unemployment insurance, maternity leave, and others compared to other workers. The issue is often the threshold on the number of hours worked, but overall the access is similar. And the tax rate between age workers and other contracts is similar in almost all countries. If an age worker loses their job, access to training and training funds is mainly being done by government schemes or by funds being set up by the sector via CLAs. And finally, on social dialogue, again, a lot of variety between countries, a lot of diversity between countries, but it's all an important element of the sector, and it touches on many fields like wages, training, social protection, and again, you see here the figures in detail and more on the report. And what is important here is to highlight the elements of rapid training funds or social funds that are especially important in Europe, as well as self-regulation instruments like quality standards and compliance elements, again, training and health and safety as important elements. We know again a few countries, and maybe members can explain something in the discussion part. So overall, we hope that this report provides value. Here again, you see some examples from the report on topics being covered by CLAs across the countries that have responded. So again, wages are important, training is a key element, pension funds, and health and safety. And again, these are important not only to show that we are well regulated and provide adequate, safe, stable work, but also to improve the image of the industry in many countries, because of course these investments are important to show our social commitments in the countries covered. Social protection, access, and coverage is quite stable over the years that we see it. And here you see the first multi-annual comparisons which we have been doing, and you see a strong coverage for our industry, for maternity leave, for accident insurance, disability insurance, unemployment benefits. Then childcare is a bit lower, but still very high. And the least strong is the training support and career support, which is of course a more less frequent option. Now we would like to hear from you, and I invite you to go to slido.com and to tell us which of the elements of regulation is keeping you awake at night. We are coming now to the interactive part on what is most concerning for you. So go to Slido and follow the link and enter your answers.
Somebody can share the link to WhatsApp because I'm following by my smartphone. I'm not able to access to the QR code.
Beatrice will do so. Sectoral bans. So here you see the main results on Slido. And sectoral bans, collective assignment, open-end contracts. So very much mirroring the assessment of regulation we have been surveying and monitoring. And maybe I give now the floor to Stephanie Binet from IOE to reflect a bit on the report and to comment on regulation in our industry. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for sharing this first insights with us, and thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to react. I'm very happy to be with you. I think let me just I know some of you on the call, but for those who don't know the IOE, we're the Global Umbrella Association of National Employers Organizations. Our members are in 152 countries. So your organization may be affiliated to our member. So given IOE and WEC common policy objectives in employment and in labor market issues, we have a trusted partnership and even friendship. So I really thank you for that. Reflecting on regulations, regulations are meant to provide a framework for companies to strive in the best case, right? But I think as Menno was pointing out, regulations may hinder business operations. And there's a broad concern about the evolving regulatory environment, which impacts everything from operational efficiency to workforce agility. Regulations present both opportunities and challenges for employers as well as for recruitment agencies. And we would rather see the glass half full and look at the opportunities. And while those frameworks aim to protect workers and enhance job quality, we see that they often bring operational and financial challenges that can constrain the flexibility that make, for instance, agency work so valuable. So at IOE, we really believe that regulations must strike a fair balance between protecting migrants, workers' rights and enabling employers to operate efficiently and responsibly. And that's the balance that we strike to have at the International Labour Organization, where we represent the employers. The ILO brings together employers, workers, and governments to agree on recommendations, on guidelines. And IOE's members represent all industries, including in many countries, the recruitment industry. So we're really pleased to raise your voice at the ILO whenever we can, whenever possible. And I'm sure you all know Convention 181, the Private Employment Agency Convention, as well as the Guide to Private Employment Agencies that the ILO has also published, and the operational guidelines on fair recruitment and the definition of recruitment fees and related costs, which many of you have also contributed to. So ILO is also quite engaged with the industry, and whenever we can, we really try to raise the voice and raise this important voice for regulations to be as flexible as possible. For us, the recruitment industry is a critical piece of today's labor market, helping employers efficiently connect with talent to fill job vacancies. Something increasingly important as businesses navigate rapid changes and massive skills shortages. With us increasingly relying on intermediaries to secure the workforce that we need, it's really essential that the recruitment agencies can operate in a supportive regulatory environment that allows them to fulfill this role effectively. So I wanted to come back to the findings and to 4 points, which were, I think, quite striking. One was about the conditions for establishing recruitment agencies. The survey, as I understand, highlights the complexities around agency establishment in certain markets. We as employers, we value a business environment where recruitment agencies can be established with minimum bureaucratic barriers. barriers to the establishment of agencies limit access to necessary labor market intermediaries, which are essential for bridging skills gap and responding flexibly to market demands. So we prefer regulatory frameworks that streamline agency establishment to encourage a wide range of intermediaries. And this is really particularly key for multinational businesses that operate across borders and rely on agencies to help fulfill staffing needs and in multiple markets. The second point was about the use and the flexibility of agency workers. A critical priority for employers is maintaining the flexibility that agency work offers, especially for roles that are project-based or demand responsive. Regulations that are too prescriptive around agency worker utilization can really limit the employer's capacity to fill roles efficiently and respond to the market demands. So we advocate for flexible policies that do protect agency workers' rights without undermining the operational adaptability that makes agency work an attractive option for both companies and for the workers. A third point, which is striking for us and which we deeply value, is the role of social dialogue. And as you know, IOE deeply values social dialogue, be it tripartite or bipartite social dialogue. We can have a dialogue between employers and governments, between employers, governments, and workers. At IOE, and we do social dialogue at the ILO all the time, and our members do social dialogue all the time at the national level. We talk to the trade unions constantly. Social dialogue between employers, workers is essential to fostering trust and maintaining constructive working relationships. So we really value in social dialogue a way to ensure that workers' protections are balanced with operational realities. So here, this is really a call for you to work with your national employers organizations who are constantly social dialoguing, if these words exist, but who are really in constant social dialogue at national level. If this can help you facilitate a conversation in your countries, please do reach out to them. Sometimes, as I said, your members are members of our employers organization. If not, do make the link. You have partners in the country that you can see as allies. And the fourth and last point was around, I'd say, the perception of the industry and the role of the agencies in promoting employment opportunities. As I said, we value the agencies as essential partners in bridging the gap between job openings and available talent, particularly for short-term or highly specialized roles. We see room for regulatory frameworks that recognize the positive impact of agencies on labor market access and on job creation. We generally support initiatives that elevate the industry's image, emphasizing its role in bridging employment gaps, providing access to work opportunities, and supporting businesses during times of high demand or of skills shortages, like it is the case right now. So through the IOE, really employers recognize the importance of positioning the recruitment industry as a respected and valued part of the labor ecosystem. And I really wanted to highlight this because, again, there's really room for improvement there, and you can really count on us to help support that and count on our partners, on our members in the country to ensure that the regulations are aligned with what our needs are. And I'll stop here, Michael, for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you much, Stephanie, and thank you much for your message, which were used to our music to our ears. I would like to give the floor to our members now and ask who would like to take the floor. I know there are a couple of countries where regulation has been changing and challenging in the past. I'm seeing Bev on the with the camera on. So maybe one of you would like to take the floor and ask a question to Stephanie, comment on the report, or have some national information to share.
Well, Michael, maybe to break the ice,
Yes,
allow me
please.
to make a first comment, which is basically linked to what Stephanie already said, right? Ideally, regulation should be a driver for our industry, should enable business. And I think in our industry particularly, we have always really subscribed to that view of the world, right? We don't believe in a world completely free of regulation. We actually believe that regulation is there to help the bona fide part of our industry be competitive in a world that otherwise might look very chaotic and might give opportunities to those who might be less ethical or less have less good intentions. And so I think in that sense, we're not against regulation at all. But I also think that what we see today is, unfortunately, more and more regulation is missing the mark, right? It's starting from an ideological perspective rather than from a problem-solving perspective. And thereby, it often hurts our industry without solving the actual problem it set out to do. And so I think that is exactly the reason that World Employment Confederation here to raise the flag for good regulation and to try and convince policymakers that they shouldn't go overboard. But I would love to hear from others indeed what their experience is in their respective markets or from their respective commercial insights.
Another try. Anybody who would like to take the floor? Otherwise, Sonia, do you want to have a bit of a view on Europe and what's happening in Europe regarding regulation after European elections, with new commission coming in, and of course the national level also being in the driver here?
Yeah, I think a lot is happening in Europe at this moment in time. I mean, we've all seen that it's global election year, but that also in Europe, there are many member states who have national elections, next to the fact, of course, that there have been European elections, which were held on June 6 to 9, in fact, this year. It will have an impact, the outcome of all the elections, both nationally as well as European-wise, will have an impact on the upcoming regulatory framework as we know it today. We've already seen that the European Commission is planning to table regulatory and legislative initiatives with regards to AI in employment, to name a few, but also the Quality Jobs Roadmap in that sense. So they all sound promising and very relevant, but linking this to the global picture that Stephanie from the IOE is working on, we know that the platform economy discussion, which will be part of the next 2 years at the International Labour Conference, so that means in 2025 and in 2026, will have a huge impact on our industry as well. And my point here is that within Europe, we see a lot of trends and developments. On the one hand, moving into more liberalized labor markets, for example, Italy, but even to a certain extent, Germany. But we also see more restrictions popping up in those countries where agency work actually originated. Let's say, for example, the Netherlands in that sense. So the picture in Europe and even on a global level is quite mixed. My view on all of this is in fact that what we have been seeing for the past 10 years already is that next to the focus on agency work regulatory frameworks, we see more and more dossiers popping up, which in fact have something to do with agency work, but at the other side are also impacting the labor market in general. We already named them: AI, platform economy, self-employment, other forms of HR services that our industry provides to the clients and to the talents. That said, I'm a positive person. I still believe in the fact that we are moving forward. And yes, there are a lot of challenges to tackle, but my point specifically, maybe also to the IOE, to Stephanie, is how to keep track of the increasing amount of policy dossiers that will have an impact on the labor market in general. Because more and more topics are on the agenda than ever before. And how do we ensure that we are able to prioritize them according to the wishes of the members, whether that is for the IOE or for the WEC, I would say. Would love to hear about it.
Maybe back to Stephanie.
Sonia, prioritization is is a tough one, because as you were saying, there are a lot of things coming up. Digitalization, AI, regulation of AI, of digitalization of is also high on many governments' agenda. Over-regulation will kill innovation, that's for sure. But under-regulation will just provide a free space for cowboys to come and play with Nintendo things, which are outdated. But it's really it's that balance that needs to be found. And I think we, as the IOE and WEC, are here to also point to the right balance, and to bring, again, I like your positive attitude, and to bring the positive out of those what tends to be perceived as negative trends. When we talk about AI, we keep saying that AI will destroy jobs, that AI, there are data protection issues, there are all sorts of issues, but we should not forget all the jobs that are going to be created, and the automation that will also enable the markets to move better. And I think this is also our role to push for those more positive trends. Now, platform economy, that's also a piece, a gigantic piece that is coming up. ILO will be discussing a recommendation, a convention, we don't know yet, about platform economy. We are preparing the employer's position very well in advance to really make sure that we tackle all the aspect related to the platform economy, from the social dialogue around platform economy, social security, terms and remuneration, disconnection, all those aspects, all those angles, all those relationships that we were discussing in an employment relationship. We want to make sure that they are going to be addressed in the right way during this conversation. And again, looking at the platform economy in a very positive way. How the economy is enabling people to have access to job, not leaving them behind. How it has been, how it is promoting opportunities for people who may not be able to access the normal job market. So I think those are all the issues that we need to be on top of, to be able to influence the regulations and the debate in a way that we're not going to over-regulate, but we're going to regulate in a smart and in an efficient way. And Sonia, we could keep on. I mean, there's also climate change. And the climate change is also on top of all of our priorities, right? How climate change will impact the jobs, what type of skills are going to be needed on the labor market tomorrow. Do we have the skills? Do they need to be retrained? Do we need to upskill people to be able to bring them to the labor market in this transition to low carbon economies, to net zero economies? Um, what are the solutions? What are the opportunities? Again, we're creating a whole new economy here. We're producing new um, new solar panels that we are now producing didn't exist decades ago. Where are the skills to work on those things? And then comes also the waste management industry, for instance, a whole bunch of new industries coming out because of climate change. How is this going to be staffed? Those are all questions that we need to be on top of. And I think your members and IOE members are quite in advance in moving the needles in those topics.
Michael, if I may suggest, and it might be a bit of a change of topic, but as I mentioned in my introduction, this report is an internal one, so we will not publish this in its whole to the outside world. And one of the ways we can use this is to support national advocacy. I thought maybe it's very useful for you to illustrate a little bit what that could mean or what that could look like. So what kind of questions could you help answer with the use of this report, and what would that look like?
Well, of course, we have, thank you, Mino, for the questions. We have, of course, discussions in a couple of countries on equal pay in the US, in Australia. And what we can do based on the report is, on the one hand, look at what happens in the country, and then do a comparison. Which number of countries, based on our sample survey, have equal pay regulation in place? How is it being regulated? Are there derogations? What is the definition? What elements are covered under equal pay? And that can help to, for example, draft a letter to the government. That can help feed your national advocacy, and that can help to, in the end, reach a better outcome on regulation at the national level. Of course, in parallel, we have discussions at the global level on regulation that are similar. There is an OECD event coming up soon on equal pay from a gender dimension in Paris at the OECD, where we are going to present what it means for our industry. And so all the data which we collect are feeding national level, European level, and global level in terms of advocacy. And we are here to support our members, to serve our members, and this is the main tool in terms of regulation to serve you and to help you, in addition to our biannual zero report, which my colleague Andrew is preparing. Maybe can say a few words on the next upcoming zero, where we try to assess and predict change in regulation that are coming up in the next 6 months. Maybe, Andrew, you can say a few words on the upcoming zero.
Sure, Michael. No one's received it yet because we just finalized it yesterday. So we wanted to get through this WEConversations, not to confuse everyone with two separate reports. But yeah, then the Zero is going to be coming out, and you're all very used to what that is. And I think this time a change that the team has decided to make is to provide you with more of the responses, the actual responses that came, not just an analysis of those responses or the highlights, is to actually see how each country rated these areas. So just to get a little bit more into the weeds for you, that may answer some questions or prompt some questions for you to connect with other members to better understand where the situation lies with them. So expect this in the next couple of days. Like I said, we just don't want to overlap and confuse everyone with two different reports. But again, the CERO is taking a look at the next 12 months. And it's a weather vane. That's something you'll see in there. It's just looking to forecast. And even countries in when it comes to the CERO, may be given a negative outlook, may not be negative necessarily for the industry. And I know that is maybe a little confusing, but in the previous editions I've worked on with this, talking to some of the members, that yes, the outlook came in with a negative rating, and Victoria could always jump in here. But after some conversations, they said, yeah, for the overall economy, a certain situation at home may cause a negative outlook, but it could be positive for the industry. So there's a lot of nuance in that. And again, it's a snapshot in time, and having everyone give their best guess in a way at what may come. But it really is to drive discussion, conversation, and prompt those questions. And Sonia, at the board, that was a big part of this, to ensure that members do receive this, because it is sparking those conversations. And hopefully people can continue long after it's been released and before the next one in the spring, to look at how things evolve over each CERO. But again, it is looking at the next year as what could be possible. So yes, there is some overlap with these, but yes, expect that in the next couple of days.
Any other question or comment on the two tools?
So sorry, Michael. I did actually mute you by mistake, but
And any questions or comments on the two tools, Regulatory Report or CERO?
I did want to make a comment as well. Sorry, it's because I go too much power over these this technical stuff. But I just wanted to say that after a few years of carrying out the regulatory report, it is now actually possible also to evaluate the changes that have been happening at regulatory level. And it's actually quite fascinating to see that things are going for the better. I know that Michael already showed you a slide, especially on social protection, showing how things have changed for like positively. But when you have access to the full regulatory report, you also manage to see what other trends have been happening. And I think the important thing to remember is that, of course, this tool helps us in our European international advocacy activities, but also at national level, that you can use it to show, well, this is what's happening in other countries. Agency work is actually a good thing for the labor market, and social protection is usually something that we are attacked on, and like, oh, but agency work like doesn't really protect workers. But instead, with the data that we're gathering, we can actually prove otherwise. And it's actually very good also on equal pay and equal treatment and all the other factors that Michael presented earlier. Is something that you can really use at national level to persuade governments maybe not to ban the sector, which is something that was one of the main concerns from the Slido. Because if you show that in general, like agency work first always were regulated, it offers protection to workers, you also have specific data on countries, I think you have a 360 degrees tool that can really help you shape national advocacy activities as well. So of course, just remember that being a confidential tool, we have to be careful about what we disclose and what we do not disclose. So it's mainly for you to have a general review. And then I think that if you reach out to Michael, myself, Victoria, about whether you would like to use some slides for your own personal activities, I don't think it will be a problem, and we can come up together with a slide deck that you can use also for your stakeholders. It could also be in front of trade unions, because of course, the main challenge could be that if trade unions see some data, being data, they can be interpreted in different ways. So if you just reach out to us, I don't think it will be a problem. We can always come up with a slide deck that you can use for your national purposes.
Thank you, Beatrice. And if there are no further questions, I would like to thank again Stephanie for. Stephanie, you have another comment? Yes, please. Go ahead.
I will just a final word, just to really congratulate. I think just to echo what Beatrice was saying, data is key when we do advocacy. When we need to convince our governments, we need to do that based on data. And what you have collected here is a gold mine to go to the governments and say, look, these are the facts. Now, please regulate and do your policy in a way that is based on those facts. And I think it's a gold mine, and I really do hope that it will be of use to your members. And when we look also at all the cumbersome regulations that we can have, it's all against the ease of doing business. What we want is, let us do our business, let us set up business, let us create jobs, employment for the economy to strive and for the people to be able to work. And I think this is a message that governments also need to hear about. Help you, provide us an enabling environment for us to be able to contribute to your economies and pay the taxes and do what needs to be done, but do help us to do that. And I think the data that you're collecting are key in this endeavor. Thank you for the invitation again, Michael.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And Menno, any closing words from your side?
Well, thank you. No, I wouldn't have a lot more to add to everything that's been said so far. I indeed truly believe that this is a very useful and relevant tool. So I invite everyone, whenever you have any challenges on the national level, do reach out to the WEC head office team, because they do have a lot of comparative data that will prove useful for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all our speakers, and have a good afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.